Hi, my name is Eddie C, and welcome to My Positive Podcast. I'll bring you positive stories of people from all walks of life, because everyone has a story to tell.
Well, hello and welcome back to MPP. My name is Eddie C, and this is My Positive Podcast. Today we'll be touching on the theme of healing, and I've got three wonderful guests for you this week. One of my guests is a model, but also loves to cook, and she's a grandmother on top of that. I have another guest who's working for the European Engineering Consultancy, and he'll share his story about what healing means to him. And my third guest is a wonderful singer and a beautiful person who was in one of the top groups back in the day of the dance music. And now she's going to share her story of how she fought through cancer. Today is episode 7, and it's all about healing. So stay tuned and stay positive.
My name is Eddie C, and you're listening to My Positive Podcast.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, my first guest is a very lovely lady. She's a mom, recently just became a grandmother. She's a fantastic model, done a lot of pageants, and she's also a sales manager, so has quite a busy schedule. Please welcome Miss Malou Soetaerts. Hi, Malou.
Hello, Eddie. Good evening.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Been quite a while. Listen, I'm going to get right into the questions because I know you don't have a whole lot of time, but maybe you can tell our audience a little bit about what you do, a little bit about your background, and how you actually got into modeling.
Oh, okay. Well, first, I was born in Sint-Truiden in 1972.
It's in Belgium, right?
That's in Belgium. It's in Limburg.
Okay.
So I had a quiet, normal childhood, but then when I was about 14, I really became very insecure about my looks because I was very skinny at that moment, and I always thought that people were laughing at me. And then at a certain moment, my mom said, I want you to enter a beauty pageant so you can see that people are not laughing because you don't look good. So then she started to search for a pageant for me. And I became second. And then I started my modeling career. But when I was 18, I had to study, of course. So then my modeling career was it was not that it was not important, but I had to choose. And
all right.
in fact, I studied accountancy because my big dream was to become a stewardess. But my boyfriend at that time, he didn't want me to be away all the time. So I chose for my boyfriend at that time. I still regret it a bit, but yeah, my life is good like it is now. So I would not change it for anything.
Okay. And when you started to do the modeling with the pageants, you continued with that, of course, after you were 18, or did that just stop altogether?
Yeah, it all stopped together. And then when my oldest daughter was 14, we were looking at the pictures of the past. And then she said, yeah, Mom, why are you not competing a pageant anymore? I said, yeah, but there are no pageants anymore for people who are my age. And then we found Miss Deluxe on the internet, and that's a beauty competition where you can be between 18 and 42, and you do not need to have size 36. So I said, yeah, that's my chance. I'm going to participate.
Okay.
But then afterwards, the organization of Miss Deluxe, they asked me to be the coach. So I did it for 2 years. I did it with all my heart. But then I changed my job because then I became a sales manager and I had to work 7 out of 7. So I didn't have time to do the coaching anymore.
Okay. Wow. And with the sales managing, what are you doing? Is that a particular company or?
Yeah, it's a big fish company in Ostend. And until 2 weeks ago, we only delivered to restaurants. But of course, due to Corona, we had to find something else. And in my previous job, I was a sales manager in an Icelandic fish company. So now we are starting to import ourselves from Iceland as well. So we are going to try to sell to wholesalers, not only focus on the restaurants.
That's great. Alongside of the modeling, how is it to be a grandmother?
Well, I think it's something you cannot subscribe because I love my children very much. But my granddaughter, I can't explain what I feel. Due to Corona now, I have had a lot of bad moments. And every time when I see her, it's like she just makes my day. she starts to recognize me now. She's becoming 6 months and 2 days. And she's the love of my life.
All righty. Our show today is about healing. And I know you went through some very hard times a few months ago when we first actually spoke to each other. And can you tell our audience a little bit about that?
About how I healed myself, you mean?
Right.
I think it's just to focus on the positive things in life and not only focus on the negative, because the more negativity you absorb, it's because I'm also high sensitive, and I just found out that I also need to avoid every negativity around me. And when you start doing that, you feel better, and instead of complaining, oh, I don't have this or I don't have that, I started to say, yes, but I can do this, or I can, like now with Corona also, I lost my job for 4 months. Instead of nagging that I lost some money, I had the time to spend with my granddaughter. Otherwise, I work 1 week, I work 7 out of 7. The other week, I work 5 out of 7. And then I have my second job as well. So now
And what is your second job?
I work for a research company in Leuven. So we are doing interviews at people's home. But due to Corona, that also changed a bit, because now we cannot enter the homes anymore, but we have to take the interview at the door. So it's not always easy, but we do our best. And I like my 2 jobs because they are completely different. And then, of course, I have the modeling, because I work in a fish company that is mostly a man's world.
Right.
And with my modeling and my pageants, I can be feminine as well. So.
Yeah. Well, how is it to be working in that man's world for you?
I must admit, in the beginning, it was very difficult because, first of all, I was an accountant. I knew nothing about fish. So I had to start from the bottom. I was first only the logistics person in the company, and then I even had to re-ice the fish, deliver fish to the client. So it was not always a job at my office. But then I could climb up until a sales manager, and now people appreciate me. But it's like I'm a legend in the fish business, because you don't have much women in the fish working, and especially my name is also not so common. So if you ask who is Malou, everybody knows who I am, and that gives a good feeling, It's like
Sure,
yeah,
that's wonderful. But of course, I know that you're a very hardworking person, and recently you had troubles with your heart. I remember you saying, and that's been quite something to overcome, because it was quite a heavy operation that you right?
Yeah, I thought it was not going to be so complicated, but apparently not everything went how it should be in the hospital. So I had to recover much longer. But I had my last checkup last week, and for the moment, I do not need to take medicines anymore. And of course, I have to avoid too much stress. It's not easy in my job, but like I told you, I'm now trying to only look at the positive things in life and not at the negative, and that's helping a lot.
That's very important. Well, as we start to get to the end of our interview, I know you got your 2 daughters. Your oldest daughter has a child, a little girl, but your youngest daughter is still with you at home.
She just became 18 last week, and she's staying 1 week with me and 1 week with the father.
That's great. She gets to see both parents. So I'm going to ask you our last question, actually, which is, what does healing mean to you?
Healing means, to me, get rid of the negativity and listen to your inner voice. Mm-hmm. Because you get a lot of comments from everywhere, and everybody wants to give you advice, but the best advice is just listen to your heart.
Now, I agree with you on that. That's very important, to listen to your heart. And you also love cooking.
Yes, I adore cooking, and especially the same problem as you have. I cannot eat gluten, or I cannot eat lactose. So I have to be inventive to cook my own dinner. And then people often ask me, but you combine 2 jobs, you have your housekeeping, you do your modeling, you still have time to cook. But it doesn't take longer to cook yourself than to order something and wait until it's delivered, and at least you know what you're eating.
Exactly.
For me, it's important.
Yes. There's one thing in particular that you're very good at making. It's banana bread. You have a special recipe about that.
Yes. It's not special. It's just because it's made out of the heart. I think that it's always, seems to be good. So
okay, so maybe a new market break there. Yeah. Malou's banana cake.
Yeah. Not only banana cake, one of my dreams is to have some kind of workshops I can do and show people that you can cook in a few, not a few minutes, but in less than 30 minutes, you can have a good and healthy meal. So you do not need to rush to the restaurants or order takeaway. It's just... Also, I enjoy the cooking.
I want to thank you so much for coming on, taking the time out with your busy schedule. And it's good to see that things are going well for you. Do you have any future plans outside of your cooking and being the grandmother that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, it's just, it depends how the coronavirus is going to keep us, separated for going abroad. Because I was invited to participate an international beauty pageant again in South Korea in September.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can find my sponsors, I really would like to go there. Because it's not about winning, but there it's more about getting to know new people, a new country. That's for me important.
Well, anyway, I'd like to thank you so very much for coming on the show and sharing your story, how healing has been for you. Are there any last words you'd like to tell our public when it comes to healing?
Oh, not really. Just like I said, try to listen to your inner voice and try to avoid people who are trying to get negativity into your body, because that destroys a lot. I got my heart problems. I got my problems at my stomach due to all the negativity I got from the people. So just try to avoid that and enjoy the little things in life.
Very important. Well said. Wise words. Okay. Well, listen, Malou, thank you once again for coming on the show. And
yeah, you're welcome.
We'll see each other sometime soon and behind the camera.
Okay, that's a promise.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
A lot of love to you and the family.
Yeah, thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is My Positive Podcast with Eddie C.
My second guest today is a very special guy. We met recently and we had a great conversation about some of the problems in the world. He's working as Secretary General for the consulting engineering industry in Europe. Please welcome Mr. Jan van der Putten. So, hi, Jan. How you doing?
I'm fine. Busy times. Apart from the fact that, Corona has disrupted the industry, but not only ours. I mean, it's been disruptive for all kinds of industries, I would imagine.
Yeah, especially the entertainment world as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been working from home since mid-March last year. So I've seen my office 4 times for the last year. So it's incredible. We needed to adapt to new modes of, interaction. Well, there is a lot more activity right now than when we used to have in-person meetings, for example. So now we have very regular meetings every 4 to 6 weeks for various committees that we have within our European Federation, dealing with various aspects, going from internal market issues, public procurement. We have the European Green Deal right now, but we have also internal issues like producing guidelines for member associations, because my members are national associations of consulting engineers. And what the heck are consulting engineers? Well, these guys, they design everything that you see around you, apart from, residential buildings. So it goes from industrial buildings to bridges, roads, highways, power stations, you name it. Everything you see around you has been designed by engineering consultancies.
Right. That's sort of it in a nutshell. I saw an interview of you recently that you showed me, which has something to do with the whole Brexit issue. Can you tell a little more about that?
Well, Brexit has shaken up the whole industry in the sense that, we have very close connections with the UK with us, with the rest of Europe. We have no clue today how that will impact on, tax regulations for the provision of services, because engineering consultancies are a services industry, so it's an intellectual service. So we design roads and whatever you can imagine. But can we continue doing that in the UK? And can the UK come to Europe under the same terms? So for the time being, we're still in limbo. We don't know exactly how that will impact on the industry. Anyhow, what I can say is that we want to stay supportive with our colleagues in the UK and see how we can collaborate further. The economy doesn't stop because of Brexit, of course, but it will have repercussions. And so we don't have a fair view on what these will be.
All right. Yeah, it's quite a complicated situation, if you ask me. But there's a lot of politics involved, I imagine, especially around it. And like you said, at the economic situation. How is that whole thing now basically going with the whole Corona situation? Because that added an extra pressure to the whole situation, I think.
Well, it's a challenge and both an opportunity, I would say. Because what we have seen over the last years is an increased use of digitalization on the construction industry. Mm-hmm. And now with Corona, and since everyone has to work from home, or nearly everyone has to work from home, that has boosted, that digitalization introduction into the sector. So I think it's an opportunity rather than, a disrupt occurrence in the normal way of doing business. So for me, it's not that much of a concern. So I think the industry will benefit from it eventually.
But I think that's my personal opinion. I worked for example, at a music shop, and as soon as Corona hit, because they're basically an online shop, a lot of their employees got laid off, which I think is not always so good for an industry as well. If you've got, people sitting at home, basically I think the staff was cut in half almost, to the point that unless you knew how to work their computer system, you didn't have a job with them. And for people to go, and I don't know how it is in your sector, I still believe in contact with people other than virtual contact. For the shops, that's one of the key factors, in fact, people being able to be in touch with each other.
Yeah, well, we've seen a similar development within our sector. So up front last year, there were many layoffs, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And then there was also temporarily unemployment in order to cope with the situation as a business.
Right.
The situation has completely reversed nowadays, because now we are confronted with a shortage of staff. So we don't find the right people anymore in order to, respond to the market demands. So, it's been a strange development over the last year. But anyway, I'm confident that we will overcome one way or another. Now, the other thing that we have seen that may not be with music shops, for example, but we see a huge consolidation of the market. So, which means that SMEs are increasingly being bought by larger concerns, consortia, and larger groups. So SMEs are, for the moment, a little bit in a transition period, I would say. Either they specialize very, very deeply, or they join larger groups and try to survive that way. Uh-huh. That's the impact of the Corona right now.
I think because of the new technology that we have, you basically need to know so much about how a computer works, or a computer system. And if you don't know the particular system for that company, you're kind of screwed, to put it blankly.
Yeah.
And so are you guys busy to try to train people in the field that maybe have the know-how from outside of computer work, to train them to work with the computer more inside for the situation?
Well, that's not a concern of the European Federation as such. That's a concern at national level. because clients require engineering consultants to provide, plans and drawings in a certain electronic format. And those formats can differ from one country to another. Another concern is that the interoperability between those various electronic platforms is not always, up to date, and so you lose data when going from one platform to another. So there are a lot of concerns. So what we're trying to do right now, that is within the European Standardization Organization, is to develop we help to develop an open source platform that would be, readily available for everyone. And companies could tap into that system, see that their data isn't lost across project cycles. So there's a lot of issues over there. And then you have the software vendors. These guys, they used to sell programs to companies, but nowadays they don't sell programs. No, they only sell licenses. Until a few years ago, you could buy a license for a company, but now that is all over.
Right.
Now you need to buy licenses per person that is working with the system. So there are a lot of issues out there that we need to solve. And so, but those are the things that we're involved in. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. And we are very concerned about it. And we are considering, I'm not saying legal steps at this point in time, but anyway, to start a dialogue with the software vendors in order to see whether we can find common ground somewhere. It's hard not to crack, I can tell you.
So we're actually coming into a sort of a big brother is watching kind of thing, if you look at it.
It's all about finding the right balance. So our sector has been mentally hit like any other sector. Some people have been physically hit because of the isolation. We will need to strike a new balance also to keep the sector fit, prepared to be prepared to go for the new challenges ahead of us. We have a lot of things over there. Perhaps it's not known by the public at large. But for example, we had the European Green Deal with a lot of commitments for the industries. Perhaps not for a music shop. There is a classification of sustainable investments, which is called the EU taxonomy. And so that's one of the things. So how can we make our environment more sustainable? Now, that might also, for example, apply to music shops. What kind of products do you sell and how do you sell it? How sustainable is it? And there is a new element coming to it, which is the social taxonomy. So the well-being of persons within the various industries, because you can imagine that health situations and mental health also, not only physical, but mental also, are quite different from a music shop to, for example, a blue collar in the metallurgy industry or in the textile industry in India or wherever, or in China. So there are many issues coming our direction. So we're trying to find our way through it. It's not obvious, but anyway, it's a nice challenge.
So there's a lot of healing technically involved in the whole project, as you would say, in the Europe industry.
Yeah. No, so that is one of the assignments that we have as European Federation. That is to create a level playing field across Europe. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, the new legislation that comes out, or existing legislation that comes out of the European Commission, the European Parliament, and eventually the European Council needs to secure that, we create that level playing field and we iron out all the differences between the various member states. Now, that's easier said than done, I can tell you. But nonetheless, if the basic layer, which is the European legislation, is wrong up front, then it becomes messy in all the member countries, because then they will do whatever they like and go in all directions. So that is not what we want to do. So our assignment is to secure that level playing field for a number of sectors, like, for example, public procurement across the EU, like environmental issues, because pollution, you don't stop pollution at the border. It doesn't really work. So you need to have a broader view, and that's what we are trying to imagine.
It's very interesting, the whole situation behind it. And what you're doing, like you say, this has a lot to do with all of the countries finding balances, because there is a European Union, but sometimes I get the idea that one country has its own set of rules than the other country, and they're sort of like double standards, which seem to cause a lot of conflict sometimes. I got one more question for you. Our theme, of course, for this week is about healing. So what does healing mean to you?
Healing means to me finding the right balance again, whether that be physical, whether that be mental, or a combination of both. If you're under stress, for example, a good walk can be healing. If you feel isolated, meeting up with, friends and family can be a healing moment, and you get strengthened again and you can think about other things again. So healing is striking the right balance within yourself. Now, that will be interpreted in different ways by different people. It depends on, where you come from and what you are confronted with. It's a very complex thing, actually. We've seen it over the last year, for example. The number of people with burnout, with mental problems of all kinds. The youth coming in the streets, in the parks, and say, we're fed up with all those rules. We want to go back to normal and have a drink with friends on a terrace, blah, blah, blah. So it's finding the right balance. In present times, we need to be severe with ourselves and abide by the rules, see that everything goes back to normal in the near future. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out to come on the show and talk with me and share your story with the audience. Once again, I want to thank my guest, Mr. Jan from Putten. And Jan, I know one last word. What would you say to the public as far as what you would advise them to do with healing?
Well, for the time being, I would say simply stick to what you're told to do. Observe the rules that are imposed on us for the time being, and you will see if we all do that, well, I'm sure at the latest, at the end of the summer recess, we will be able to go back to normal. So physical health is equally very important, but we need to be very disciplined and do what experts tell us, not have our own weird ideas about whether we're fed up or not. I mean, everyone's fed up. Yeah, stick to the rules.
On that line, I want to thank you again, buddy, for coming on the show and talking to me. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Okay, take care, Eddie. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
This is My Positive Podcast with Eddie C.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're down to my third and final guest for this week's show. She's a fantastic singer, a very warm-hearted person. We've worked together several times on different jam session shows and coming out the Hilversum area. And she's one of the singers that used to work with a group called Two Brothers on the Fourth Floor that became quite a hot item, especially when the dance music scene started to come up in the Netherlands and Europe. Please welcome my next guest, Miss Desiree Manders. How you doing, Des?
Hey, Eddie. Yes, I'm doing fine. Thank you.
It's good to see you. Looking great. I like the new look.
Thank you.
And I see you have your little fluffy friend on your lap.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, great.
Yes, my baby, my doggy. Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm going to go right into the questions. Can you tell my audience and me a little bit about your career, how you got started, how you actually ended up in Hilversum?
In Hilversum, yeah. Well, from child on, I wanted to sing because I love to sing. My parents were very musically. They always played with the guitars. They make a celebration of life with music. So everything I did, I grabbed to sing. Then end of the 80s, there was a television show in Holland called The Sound Mix Show from Henny Huisman.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah, and that was my first international move on television. So I won, and then in the final, I was third. That was a very good move because I met a lot of people after that. And I did a lot of shows in Holland. So I met one of the two brothers, Martin Boer. He worked for a record company, Dureco. I did some jingle things for him, choirs for some mix he make. Well, I get to know some people in Hilversum.
All right.
So I did a show on a boat to England. It's a very important show. There were teachers from Rotterdam Conservatory. They played in the band from a singer on the boat. I can't remember the name from the singer, but I got a talk with one of the guys. And he said, why don't you go to audition for the conservatory somewhere in Holland? So at that moment, I lived in Limburg. I only had done the MAVO.
Right.
And I thought, well, I cannot do that because the conservatory is a higher level. But they told me, no, you can do audition. And so I did auditions in Hilversum, and well, they accepted me. It was a beautiful school period of 5 years. And I graduated at 1969 with a 10 cum laude. So it was very, echt fantastic school period.
Okay, so you got a very high score, top of the class. It's fantastic.
And but in that school period, Martin Boer came back to me and asked me if I wanted to sing a song for his group, Two Brothers on the Fourth Floor.
All right.
And so I did. And well, it was booming immediately.
Yes, I remember. It became gigantic. How did they come on the name of Two Brothers on the Fourth Floor? That I'm always curious about that.
Yeah, yeah. Now, it's very simple, but they lived with their mother on the fourth floor.
Okay.
Somewhere in Zuilen in Utrecht. And they were two brothers living with their mother on the fourth floor.
Okay, so quite a logical name.
Yeah. But always, it's a weird name. So, yeah.
Well, it was catchy because everybody knew the name at one point, and you guys had tremendous success worldwide.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. From the beginning, I sang Never Alone. It started with Never Alone for me. And it immediately went on number 2 in the top 40 from Holland. It stays there for a very long time. And so the record company says, well, we're going to make more songs. And after Never Alone came Dreams. And Dreams was a real number 1 hit in Holland, but also in a lot of European countries. We went to South Africa. It was adventures we made to Brasilia. There was a worldwide hit. And still people email me or, on Facebook from Brasilia, from other countries, Peru. It is great.
It was a world hit.
Well, in the 90s, a period of a lot of working. Yeah, adventures and success and party with dancers and a tour manager. And so, a great experience.
Fantastic. Well, recently, the last couple of years, you had like a bit of a shadow on your career because of cancer. And I know, of course, with the Corona period and everything has been also something maybe, and I don't know, for you, maybe an easier way to find rest because you couldn't be as busy as you were at the time. How have you dealt with that in the last few years?
Well, at the end of 2019, I get the breast cancer. They told me you have breast cancer. And it was quite a shock But I already felt for 1.5 years, I didn't felt quite good. I thought something is wrong with my body because somehow I was very happy with it in a new relation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very happy in a new relation after a very heavy divorce. Yeah, it started in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I got divorced after 25 years, and that was very heavy.
Right.
And the last 10 years, my relation was also heavy. The last 10 years,
Right.
It was difficult for both of us.
I can imagine.
Because there was something wrong in our relationship, and it didn't match. But we were very traditional in our mind.
Right.
So you have to do something about it. You have to stick together. That was a traditional way of thinking.
Well, that can happen.
And well, I never do that again, of course. If I'm not happy, I'm gone. That's what I've learned. But to stay too long together, it's killing. It's killing your body also, and a lot of stress. So I think for me, it was a very stressful period for a very long time.
All right.
And I think that's also what made me a little bit sick.
Mm-hmm.
The other side was I have a very nice living, so nice life because of my career. So that is also why I could handle things, because I'm doing a lot of things I love to do,
Nice lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
That's very important to be able to do the things that you love to do, because that's one of the biggest causes of stress is the fact that you get boxed up or you're not feeling comfortable in yourself. And then illnesses will be invited to come in at that moment.
Yeah. So in 2019, I got breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I knew that it must happen to me. It's very strange, but I had a period that I was not happy. So I asked the gods above, the universe, please let something happen, because I want to go back to I name it my yoga feeling, my yoga style, to find my inner strength.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I couldn't get there before. So then I got ill. But I asked also, don't let me die, please. Don't let me die.
Right.
Let something happen
Right.
to experience, but don't let me die. So I got breast cancer. It was very heavy because I had to go in chemotherapy. I lost my hair. I get thicker and thicker. It is terrible, but on the other side, it was also a gift. And I can say that now because I'm still alive, And
Right. Well, you still have a lot of music to bring us, Diz.
Yeah, I have a lot of dreams to fulfill.
You're a fantastic singer and have a fantastic stage personality. So, and you have a very good support with Patrick on your side. He's a great musician and a great guy.
Yeah, and that fits together like
hand in glove.
Yeah, hand of glove. And in that period I got ill. The chemotherapy, came Corona. Finally, I had a few months, 3 or 4 months, that I couldn't tell anybody that I was ill because I was very scared of my job. And that's also a thing. As a musician, you need your job, you need your income. I couldn't tell anybody. And finally there came Corona. And for me, it was a good moment because then I could tell everybody that I was ill but that I'm strong and I could handle it and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember at one point you were posting on your Facebook page certain things, and you were quite open about it. I think it's been quite inspirational as well as to others that have been ill and sick during that period, you know, whether it would be cancer or whatever. So in a way, you became like, I guess, social media hero for a lot of folks. And that's a great thing to do. So in that way, it was a gift as well, you know?
Yes, for sure. The writer in me started to write and to share my feelings, because on the outside, I always am a strong, powerful woman. But I'm also, I am strong, of course, but I'm also vulnerable. That's not the reason. What I wanted to do was give people hope, because even if you have a big tumor, there is still positivity, or you can be healed, you know. And it's not always. I understand that a lot of people lost their loved ones. And I also got that over the chat. Of course, that it's not always that great, you know, but
absolutely,
that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even if you know I'm gone over a few months,
right.
Positivity is so important to.
But as long as you put the positive energy in, even if it's a terminal illness,
enjoy, life.
That there's a peace of mind. That's so important, to get that peace of mind
while it lasts.
Right. I've got one more question for you, which is our theme for this week. And of course, our theme is healing. So I'd like to know, what does healing mean to you?
Healing is a peaceful mind, inner strength, inner growth. For me, it's so positive, healing in every way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm completely a different person now than I was before I was sick. The whole healing process gives so much experiences. You have to go through all kind of phases, and every time you go through it, you become stronger and stronger. Also, because I was writing everything down, I made a journal about it, and that also gave me the time to think about things and why I feel this, you know.
Well, listen, Des, it has been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time out, sharing your story and ideas, and throwing some positive energy out there to my listeners and followers. I'll put your link to where people can reach you if they want to get in contact with you.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. And I want to say a lot of love and strength to everybody who is going through a difficult time now. Yeah, you're not alone.
Absolutely.
And I send my love to you. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thanks, a lot of love to you too.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll see each other soon in the studio.
Yeah.
Together with Patrick.
You have to do some work, huh? For your own show. Yeah.
Yes, it's time to get out there again.
Yeah. Let's make music.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Alrighty. You take good care of yourself, huh?
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is MPP, and I'm Eddie C.
All right. I hope you enjoyed these interviews this week with my 3 special guests. Before I give you this week's quote about healing, I'd like to read a short excerpt from the book, How I Cured My Cancer in 6 Weeks Using Naturopathy and Holistic Treatments by Lynn Marie. I am human, and every so often a tiny bit of depression or the blues would set in. Not over the fact I had cancer, but probably more because I was going through this alone, and also because it was one more thing in my life that could have major consequences. Without going into detail, I had an extremely hard life, and bits of depression were from being knocked down when I was already down. Interesting, isn't it? I had no depression over cancer, but only when I got tired of going it alone. I had no family to lean upon, with the exception of a couple of friends that lived in the area. Those other people that I thought were my friends seemed to just disappear. My very best friends and those closest to my heart all lived in other states, so my only support was via the telephone and the kindness of strangers. When I would get blue, I would force that tiny little smile. And you know what? It felt good. So I would make that smile a little bigger, and soon my whole face would light up and my eyes would sparkle, and I would be laughing again. Try it. It works. A smile feels better than a frown any day and shifts your energy in a positive direction. So here's my quote. Healing. Listening to your inner voice and understanding its messages. Enjoying the little things that life brings our way. Finding that right balance, be it physically or mentally. A nice walk alone, maybe with a pet or friends. Family moments together, even if it's via social media. Keeping a positive mindset and inner growth. Believing inside and outside that healing is powerful and life-changing. Well, that's about it for this week's show, ladies and gentlemen. But before I go, I'd like to thank my three guests, Malou Soetaerts, Jan van der Putten, and Desiree Manders, for sharing their wonderful stories with us. And remember, healing is a powerful tool, so use it and prosper. You can find me on all platforms like Spotify, Android, and Apple. On Facebook, look for My Positive Podcast, and my website is mypositivepodcast.com. You can also contact me via my website or Facebook. A very special thanks to my technical producer, Iswan. This show is a production by Antwerp Podcast Service. My name is Eddie C., and this was MPP, My Positive Podcast. Tune in next week and stay positive.